the current board of directors, but we need to recognize and reflect deeply on the scandal that's come out. For the past couple of months, we've been suffering against a campaign against our reputation, some defamatory conclusions that have nothing to do with the reality.
125 anys d'història, portem 123. El Futbol Club
Barça, 123 years of Barca's history, we've had a clean play model both on and off the pitch. Things that bring a lot to the sport, not just football, but also the different sporting sections that our players form a part of. In Football Club Barcelona, for decades, we've won, and fortunately we continue to win. Thank you to the strength and effort and knowledge and the talent of our players, of our staff, of our coaching staff, of the staff that work at the club, and also because of our members and our fans, the culés.
El Barça, quan guanyem,
Barça,
ho celebrem junts.
When we win, we celebrate together.
Ha estat això de generació en generació.
We've done that from generation to generation. We celebrate the triumphs. And when we lose, we congratulate the opposition and we don't look for excuses. Sport is played like this, and that's what Barca does. And I explain it in this way because we're an institution of values. We need to win, of course, and we want to win. But we want to do it in a way that we like how we win. We like to win by playing well. And that means that we don't want to win because we've got help from the referees. And part of our agreement is that we care for our prestigious image. Sometimes we play because of how we feel. Sometimes we play because things are off the pitch. And that's why we are more than a club.
De fet, no ho han aconseguit mai. Cap campanya de desprestigi.
And never has a campaign against Barcelona paid off. Barcelona continues to be a point of reference in the world of sport and continues to be loved and admired by millions of Catalans and millions of people, even more millions of people all around the world.
Quan es va produir aquesta polèmica que va aparèixer,
when this controversy came out through the press and media about the case of Negreira,
I el que vaig manifestar és que
what came about
veia clar que era una campanya orquestrada
and what became clear was that it was a campaign orchestrated against the reputation of FC Barcelona, and it was no coincidence that it was done
una investigació interna a l'àrea de compliance
when we were
que a la vegada el que va fer
putting together
un despatx extern per tal de que fes
an internal compliance investigation by an external company to have the maximum amount of transparency and independency. The professionals have worked in the area of compliance. We've let them work. We've allowed this external organization to do their job, and they've done a great job. And now we can communicate this information because these are things that have gone on during various different presidential terms. Things that can't be explained by them because they're not at the club right now, obviously.
Amb tota la rotunditat institucional que comporta el càrrec.
And so now we'll make this statement, a very complete statement by myself, the president of Football Club Barcelona. Football Club Barcelona has never done any kind of activity
com intenció
with the means or the ends and intention
alterar la competició a
of
fi d'obtenir un
swinging
avantatge esportiva a favor.
the competition
Repeteixo, el Futbol Club Barcelona
in our
no ha
favour.
realitzat
I'll say it again. Football Club has never done anything
Tinc el ple convenciment de que no hem realitzat mai
Within-
cap actuació que tingués com a finalitat o intenció
my knowledge with the ends
alterar
and the
la
intention
competició a fi d'obtenir un
of
avantatge esportiva.
taking a sporting advantage in the competition.
Afegeixo a l'escrit que l'agència tributària envia a Fiscalia
I've got
en el que manifesta clarament
evidence from the tax agency that they've not got any way
fets a
Of
empreses relacionades
proving there are any payments made towards
haguessin pogut influir
companies
en la
run by Mr. Negreira
o influir
to influence referees or influence a sporting result, the result of a match.
no ho han pogut demostrar perquè no
They've not been able to prove that because it wasn't possible.
i ho explicaré en el decurs d'aquesta intervenció.
I'll explain this.
Mireu, aquesta manifestació
Throughout
categòrica,
this speech.
afirmació categòrica, la faig
With the
però no
statement I've made,
que soc és esquiu
I made it
de l'objecte precís de la polèmica.
because I don't want to
L'objecte
skew
precís de la polèmica,
the
doncs, és
objective of this controversy,
l'assessorament tècnic arbitral que han fet unes persones que tenien doncs, una trajectòria en el món del futbol i també una trajectòria personal en el món dels estaments arbitrals.
done for an assessment
El fet
by
de que el Barça rebés un assessorament
people in the world of football,
i arbitral,
working with the coaches, the referees.
en si mateix cap il·lícit i no constitueix en si mateix molt menys un
There's
il·lícit.
nothing.
Penseu que aquest assessorament professional
Done within this
als grans clubs o als clubs en general,
referees for this assessment, which is done by these great clubs,
generalment una persona que té una trajectòria en l'estament
And they have
arbitral, un exàrbitre, que
people that working with them that have a different career path as a referee, they're former referees or they work around the officiating of matches. And we've done that for clarity and transparency because
està reflectit en factures.
the existence of this work is reflected in invoices. Invoices that have got clear concepts, that have been registered by bank transfer and have been registered for accountability by the club and have been reviewed by tax agencies.
Rotunditat, pel que fa referència al mandat meu, el del 2003 al 2000.
Tell you this because there's
No hi ha hagut mai
an impact on my term from 2003.
que seria potser propi d'algú que comet una conducta irregular. I en
There was no improper conduct at any point during that term
perquè estaven doncs, reflectits a la comptabilitat del club i
because this is all reflected in the accountability of the club and done in a way that was clear and transparent.
bé, dir també en aquest sentit,
All of that said,
em sembla també important remarcar
because I think it's important to restate
és una altra qüestió
another question that came about,
seria que doncs,
which could be
i això ho ha de determinar el tribunal o s'ha de
all of that ends with the tax agency or the courts,
terme, és que persones
is that people,
o una entitat
real people or a private entity
del club, i això és
as an
fonamental,
external to the club, and which is
que no el Futbol Club
key,
Barcelona,
not
és un
Football Club
matís
Barcelona.
molt important,
It's a really key point.
haguessin aprofitat aquest context per doncs, tenir o fer algunes conductes irregulars en benefici propi. Això és
Could have done something within this context that was improper conduct.
Si es donés aquest cas, el que per suposat el que farem serà defensar
If Football Club Barcelona
del club en aquest sentit,
became aware of this case, we would defend this vulnerability from the point of view of the club and make sure things were seen through to their proper end.
Club Barcelona, en aquest cas,
In such a case, Football Club Barcelona would be a victim of this situation.
insisteixo, a banda del que és l'assessorament
I want to say just aside from the official assessment that was done with the coaching staff and the players and the referees, which did exist, is that if somebody or something or an entity aside from Barcelona took advantage of this situation to do something that wasn't proper conduct, in which case Barcelona would be a victim. And that person would have to be held responsible for that delinquency. It's important that I insist on this because within the conclusion of the courts, there could be an external act of corruption. From 2016, Barcelona has had a compliance department.
És a l'haver estat pacient, a l'haver estat esperant que els professionals de compliance fessin la seva feina.
And up to this point, we've been awaiting for the professionals from the compliance department that we've had to do their work. And their job is dedicated purely to ensure that we're fulfilling and playing alongside the rules and to prevent and identify possible improper conduct that could be done in and around the entity of FC Barcelona. This means that the implementation of these procedures by the employees of the club are aware of their legal obligations and ethical obligations in the work that they do.
Al Futbol Club Barcelona el que hem fet ha estat reforçar aquesta àrea.
Around my presidency now, what we've done is reinforce this area of compliance to be able to continue the lines that we've followed within this area and to ensure that we can follow international standards of compliance. I give the highest amount of resources to the compliance department, both in terms of resources and people, so that they're able to fulfill their functions to prevent and detect irregular conduct, and also supervise and oversee and investigate the suspicious infractions that could come about. What did the compliance department do when this controversial Negreira case came about? Well, they took charge of an internal investigation. The head of compliance took charge of an external office to ensure the highest amount of independent and transparency within this investigation. And so now I'd like to show you the conclusions, or the preliminary conclusions of this report.
Situar-ho tot en el seu context. Com poden veure aquí,
as you can see here,
les conclusions preliminars de l'informe,
the preliminary conclusions of the report from the compliance department of this internal investigation.
Doncs mireu, les conclusions preliminars són les següents.
The preliminary conclusions are these. In agreement with the accredited facts, there have been no improper conducts identified towards with the sporting corruption.
Es tracta de serveis d'assessorament esportiu,
in terms of the contracting of businesses and people investigated, it's all about the sporting assessment, scouting and referee assessment that are typical in the sporting sector, and that there is evidence of contracting these services, and there's documentation around the invoicing and payments of these services that have been contracted. They also conclude that the amount of the invoices varies depending on the person, competitions, and the facts that they're analyzing.
Amb variacions per raó dels serveis addicionals, com ara competicions internacionals.
And that the monthly payments could vary depending on the international competitions. There were 629 refereeing reports.
Evidentment, diu l'informe, manca més documentació física,
43
ja que normalment es destrueix el
scouting reports and 4 other reports with evidence of the documentation that's been paid for over the 5 years.
De compliance finalment ha trobat. I estem parlant d'informes.
And we're talking about reports like this one,
Que els hi mostro aquí.
as I can show you here.
Aquí reunim 629 informes.
We've got 629
i arbitrals.
technical and refereeing reports.
I, com he dit, aquí els tenen.
And like I said,
629
refereeing reports.
I també, doncs, 43
and also 43 CDs of these kinds.
Que reconeixen, doncs, vídeos relacionats amb els informes.
That contain videos of these reports.
Volia ser precís a l'hora de llegir-ho.
I wanted to be precise with regarding these reports. These preliminary reports.
Aquest informe preliminar té aquestes conclusions i està fet, insisteixo, per un despatx extern.
These reports were done by an external company with maximum independence.
Dit això,
having said this,
també el que crec que és molt important és
what I think is also important is that we should let the Justice Department do their work.
La justícia té els seus temps.
Let them do their work in their times and respect the work they need to do. We have the intention to collaborate and help them,
al tribunal, a la justícia, per tal de
help the Justice Department to bring clarity.
Tenim l'interès que
it's in our interest
el Barça, com
that Barça
se li eximeixi de tota responsabilitat penal.
will be absolved of any wrongdoing, as it should be.
M'agradaria també és fer la reflexió de que les acusacions
what I would like to do as well
s'han d'aprovar davant d'un tribunal de justícia.
That the accusations placed upon us need to be put forward to the Justice Department.
De que la persona afectada hagi estat jutjada.
It can be possible that we have already been.
Vivim en un estat de dret. Soc dels que s'obstina en manifestar que vivim en un estat de dret que té entre les garanties
being framed as guilty before having proved any wrongdoing.
Una presumpció d'innocència
que,
en aquest cas i a nivell mediàtic, el Barça no ha tingut.
Presumed innocence, assumption of innocence.
Ha estat sotmès a una condemna sense judici, amb un linxament públic mediàtic sense judici.
A public lynching.
Ens han condemnat abans de jutjar-nos.
They have assumed that we are guilty before we were judged fairly.
Els representants de les institucions que regulen
I demand full responsibility on those responsible within the Spanish Football Federation as well as the European Football Federation.
La màxima responsabilitat.
I demand maximum responsibility
Aquest linxament públic sense
of all of those people because this public lynching that Futbol Club Barcelona has suffered is not deserved. Our good name is in play as well as our credibility and those of the referees and football in general. And there are some people that in an inexplicable and intolerable way
han demostrat una gran irresponsabilitat.
have demonstrated to be very irresponsible.
Assistint a un judici salomònic en el que per diverses raons
we have seen a symbolic judicial system take place of those who want or prefer that Barça
si aconsegueixen fer mal
to be dead,
els que hem gosat no doblegar-nos als interessos i a les imposicions d'ells. Això, insisteixo, és intolerable, és inexplicable.
This is intolerable and inexplicable.
El president de la Lliga de Futbol Professional ha tingut una actuació irresponsable, està tenint
irresponsible behavior,
i d'una manca de professionalitat evident.
Little prudent and lacking in professionality.
Una manca de professionalitat evident. Tant amb les seves manifestacions constants per tal d'alimentar tota aquesta polèmica, com també amb accions d'aportar documentacions a la causa que després han resultat que eren errònies, que no coincidien amb la realitat.
Several informs have come out that have now been proven to be false or simply erroneous in the information that have been put forward.
I que es deixés d'alimentar
And it has
aquesta polèmica perquè no
only enhanced this controversy and this public lynching that Barça have suffered. It has been putting into question the competition.
Ha arribat a dir que no existien els informes, que no existia documentació, que el
While
club
we
havia
continuously insisted there's official documents to prove our case.
Fem algunes preguntes i estaré encantat de respondre-les.
Later I will answer your question with regards to
Per tant,
all of this.
Home, jo el que demanaria, per contra,
What I would like to
perquè crec que també hi ha persones i dirigents que
or
s'han portat com obliga el seu càrrec, vull agrair el posicionament responsable i prudent
according to their position.
de la Federació Espanyola de
For
Futbol.
example, the president of the Spanish Football Federation.
He de dir que sobretot també el president del Consejo Superior de Deportes,
the president of
a la Federació, el senyor Rubiales, al Consejo
Sporting
Superior de Deportes,
Advisory,
el senyor Franco, també el
Mr. Franco,
president Infantino,
as well as President Infantino of FIFA, who have been prudent throughout all this time, waiting for definitive proof to come out, but they have resisted from adding or taking part in this public lynching.
Mireu, no hem de seguir els que pretenen és perjudicar la reputació del Futbol Club Barcelona, el que pretenen és desestabilitzar-nos.
Those that attack us try to
i ho dic clarament, és
hurt our image,
controlar el club i fins i tot
drag our image through the mud.
Els instigadors d'aquesta polèmica,
The instigators of this controversy, what they want,
el que volen és reconduir
they want to reconduct an inexisting case of supposed buying of referees,
un cas que perjudiqui la reputació del Futbol Club
to
Barcelona,
also damage our reputation, that of Football Club Barcelona,
també
and destroy
un dels elements identitaris més potents de Catalunya, que és el Futbol
one of the
Club
most potent elements of Catalan symbolism, which is Football Club Barcelona.
que algunes esferes de poder no accepten o
Some of those in power don't accept or don't
una catalanitat oberta al món
support.
que és respectada.
They can't stand that Barça stands for Catalanism and represents
Del sentiment barcelonista
millions
i
of people around the world.
que no són totes les esferes de poder les que no suporten que el Barça
And luckily,
expressi una catalanitat.
we're not talking about all of the entities in power.
Tinc clar, com he dit abans, que cap campanya de descrèdit
For me, it's clear that
aconseguirà això.
they are not going to succeed. We're going to continue to be a reference point within the world of sports.
Dir-vos també que sí que és cert que els danys causats,
It's true that the damage caused,
els danys morals són
the moral damage,
el que passa que
have been significant.
va passant el temps i es van donant explicacions, tot es va entenent, espero que més, no?
And hopefully as time comes, or time goes by, more further explanations will come out.
Els serveis jurídics ja sabeu que han
We know that
interposat les accions judicials corresponents contra les persones o entitats que estan atacant a la honorabilitat
systems have already put in place cases against those that are trying to damage us, and we will continue to put these forward to the judicial system, to defend the identity of the club.
Les accions que corresponen a aquestes, que per culpa d'aquestes actuacions irresponsables i temeràries,
these sections that have been damaged because of this,
un dany a l'entitat, no? I ens reservem sobretot el que és la reclamació dels danys i perjudicis,
we will demand
per indemnització dels danys i perjudicis causats. Uns danys i perjudicis
compensations,
que poden ser quantificats econòmicament, afortunadament. I per tant,
economic compensations, so
pot ser per unes quantitats astronòmiques.
we're talking about astronomical figures.
Deixeu-me concluir.
In conclusion,
8 minuts més. No sé quant temps porto, no m'agradaria
5 or 8 more minutes.
El que vull és contestar les preguntes que em facin.
What I want to do today is to get to your questions.
Però per concluir,
But in conclusion,
el Futbol Club Barcelona no ha comès cap delicte.
Football Club Barcelona has never committed any wrongdoing. The Negreira case, the case that has caused this controversy,
corrupció esportiva.
is far from being involved in sporting corruption.
Aquests serveis estaven documentats.
It was the acquisition of a service and service that has been clearly documented, and payments that have been done through bank payments legally and went through all of the tax revisions necessary.
Per això, doncs,
So,
entenc que queda clar que amb l'existència d'aquests
I think it's
serveis
clear
no hi havia cap delicte de
that
corrupció.
there weren't any cases of corruptions during
També
these
vull
times.
fer una referència a l'hora de concluir
In this conclusion, I also want to make a
a la
reference
compareixença en el judici d'un club. Un club
to talk about
lliure, comparegut
one certain
per
club,
particular,
a club that put forward a
i un club que diu que se sent perjudicat esportivament. Aquest club és el Real Madrid, el que ha
I'm
comparat.
talking about Real Madrid, who have put
Un
forward
club que tots sabeu
a
que ha
case
estat afavorit per decisions
case
arbitrals
claiming that they have
històricament
been
i en l'actualitat.
hindered or
Les
damaged
que sigui, però ha estat
by what has supposedly taken place,
afavorit per les decisions arbitrals.
but they have been in fact favored
Un club que s'ha
Often
considerat a l'equip del règim, que històricament ha estat
through
considerat
refereeing decisions,
l'equip del règim de torn.
a club that stands for,
La seva proximitat,
that has always been very close to the regime.
el poder esportiu. Home, crec que val la pena recordar
I think
que
it's good to
durant
remember
7 dècades
that throughout
la
7
majoria
decades,
dels presidents
the
dels
majority
comitès d'àrbitres,
of the
amb les seves diferents denominacions,
president of the
han estat
refereeing
gairebé de
committees
forma ininterrompuda, o ex-socis del Real
were
Madrid,
either ex-members of Real
o
Madrid,
ex-jugadors del Real
or
Madrid,
ex-players of Real Madrid,
ex-directius.
or ex-directors of Real Madrid.
Durant 70 anys,
Throughout those 70 years,
els qui han designat
those who have
les persones
assigned
que havien
people
d'impartir justícia en el
who had
terreny de
to
joc, durant 70 anys
impose
han estat,
justice
ja els dic,
on the pitch were very closely linked to Real Madrid.
socis,
Like I said, ex-members, ex-players,
o bé ex-directius,
or ex-directors,
tota la
and
vegada
sometimes
del Real Madrid.
all at the same time
Clar,
were all
aquest
linked to
club
Real Madrid. Of
es
course,
personi
if that club
i
comes out
alegui que se sent perjudicat
alleging a case
esportivament
that they have
en
been
el període millor de la
wrongly
història
done
del
by
Futbol Club Barcelona,
by the actions of Football Club Barcelona,
un exercici
I
de
find
cinisme sense precedents.
an act of cynicism that I've never seen before.
El que confio és que en aquest judici
What I trust is that the judicial system
i aquest judici els posin al seu lloc. Perquè,
will put them
insisteixo,
in their place,
és un exercici de cinisme
because it's
sense
a
precedents.
cynicism
Seguint amb les
without
conclusions,
any past presidents.
voldria dir el que vaig dir al moment de comparèixer la primera vegada. No res és casual.
Nothing here is coincidence. Nothing here that we're seeing today is a coincidence. This campaign, this public lynching,
Quan el Barça
arrives at a time where Barça are finally coming out
començant a sortir del túnel,
at the end of the tunnel.
Ens trobem,
We're finding ourselves in a position where we are improving,
estem competint bé,
we're competing well,
anem primers a
we're
la
first
Lliga.
in the league.
Jo veig aquí una raó
the
clara
domestic league.
de
So
desestabilitzar-nos.
for me, it's very clear that they're trying to destabilize us from a sporting perspective.
Mireu, no només això.
Not only that,
Aquesta campanya
but this campaign
també esclata casualment quan el Futbol Club Barcelona
is also casually
el
claiming
projecte que el president de la Lliga volia que signéssim amb el fons CBC.
it also comes at a time where Barça decided not to take part in a CVC deal. We opted for other options that are much more financially interesting for Barça, also from a sporting perspective. So it's very clear that this is not any type of coincidence. This campaign is also produced or comes out in a moment where Barça are working in a new European format.
El que busca és la sostenibilitat del futbol europeu.
For the sustainability of European football.
Aquí, el president de la Lliga de Futbol Professional ha aprofitat aquesta circumstància per intentar animar a que la UEFA s'afegeixi
to get the UEFA to take part in this public lynching before the judicial system came out with any official statement. So this is not a coincidence.
Aquesta campanya pren força casualment.
This campaign reinforces, coincidentally, when Barcelona is working to reinforce the Spotify Camp Nou to become more international. So let's just reflect on this for a minute. A fact that doesn't even exist, feeds a controversy, and comes about in a moment of all of these coincidences. That explains why. These are my explanations.
Mireu, és l'atac més ferotge que està patint l'entitat.
This is the fiercest attack we've faced in the history of this club. And so I ask all the fans of Barça to stay united, defend this badge, defend our fundamental essence, and defend the ownership of this club, the ownership that belongs to all of these members. I ask for you, more than ever, fans, to be by our side, the side of the club, by the side of our teams, by the side of our players, by the side of our coaching staff. And I ask that of all the Barça fans, that we are united more than ever to defend our badge, defend the essence and the model of our ownership, the ownership of the members, the socios. Stay by our side more than ever, the side of the players, the side of the coaches. Don't let them shake us. I'll say it once more. Barça has committed no crime in the Negreira case. There's no corruption that we've been involved in. And I think this has been an exercise of cynicism never before seen, that a club like Real Madrid would feel that the sport's been up against them during the period of the most success of Barça. I ask everyone in Barça that's been by us, and we've seen by us in the 125 years, because it's not just a sporting club, but we're a reference in the world of sport. There's a generation upon generation of Barça fans that have helped this club grow and are helping us grow. And the thousands of Barça members, what we'll do is guarantee the fundamental essence of the club. If you don't understand it, that we're an entity of values, Football Club Barcelona is exactly this. It's more than a club. And the board of directors knows, as we preside over this, we love Barça. there's no doubt that they can insult and take away the dignity of our fundamental essence and the entity of Football Club Barcelona. Thank you very much.
Ara passaré a contestar les preguntes. Els sentaré allà perquè...
Bé, al final ens han estat 35 minuts de preguntes. Ara anotarem tota la gent que vol fer preguntes. Les conclusions que han hagut que ha exposat el president sortiran al web del Barça. Per tant, si no les heu copiat, ara les podreu tenir. D'acord? A la 1 tancarem el torn de preguntes. Crec que farem 1 hora i mitja de roda de premsa. Crec que tenim prou espai per poder respondre a totes les preguntes que es facin. Per tant, us demano, el de sempre, que digueu de quin mitjà veniu i sigueu sintètics, concrets. D'acord? Comencem amb Barça Televisió.
Bon dia, president. Aquí, Àngels Prieto de Barça TV. La meva pregunta és si ens pot aclarir per què durant 11 anys el Barça va pagar 7,3 milions d'euros a l'empresa que gestionava un membre actiu del Comitè Tècnic d'Àrbitros.
A veure, entenc que em fas dues preguntes. És una pregunta amb dos vessants.
So it's one question based on two facts. There's the quantity of dinero, of money that was paid. And what I would ask is, please contextualize that this amount of money was paid over 18 years. Paid 7.3 million euros in 1 year. I want to contextualize, it's been over 18 years that we paid for reports that were important and necessary, that were made up of facts by people that had an important career in the world of these services. I just say this because the internal investigation that the compliance department's done, they found 629 reports and 43 videos. And as you can see, the conclusions of the preliminary report, there were 4 more reports on various themes.
Del 14 al 18. O sigui, en un període de 4 anys,
there was a period of 4 years that they found 629 reports plus 43 CDs. So we need to contextualize that during 18 years, so the amount of work has been done as a high quality, there's been a lot of it, it's been done by people on these reports. When I make reference to the vice president or the ex-vice president of the refereeing committee, we need to be more precise. The service that was contracted was to Javier Enriquez Romero, the son of José Enriquez Negreira. I want to be precise as to the person that we contracted these services to. And then what's even more important is that the vice president of the refereeing committee had no ability of affecting the sporting results. He had no way of assigning referees, and so affecting the sporting results. He had no ability of doing that, no way of doing that. Allow me to say it again, to really insist. This is said in Article 29 of the rules of the Spanish Football Federation, that this person could influence refereeing decisions. It's a false hypothesis. Because Article 29 of the Spanish Football Federation rules says thus, that it's not within their functions.
Ha estat corroborat
and this has been corroborated
manifestacions que han fet diversos àrbitres, que aquest
by
exvicepresident del Comitè Tècnic d'Àrbitres
statements from various referees that the ex-vice president of the refereeing committee had an ability to influence results within the competition, and also within the investigation that the Spanish Football Federation
no podia ser perquè no tenia la capacitat.
It couldn't be possible because he's not got that ability.
Importants que eren necessaris, però contextualitzi amb 18 anys.
The quantity of money paid we thought was necessary, but I want to give the context of 18 years, and the vice president of the refereeing committee had no way of influencing the sporting outcomes. I want to be precise and shine a light on all these false hypotheses that have come about.
Hola, president. A la seva dreta, Fernando Polo, per Mundo Deportivo. Primer li volia fer una pregunta sobre el seu mandat. Com és que es van recuperar aquests pagaments del senyor Negreira o a les seves empreses i per què es van apujar al final del mandat als emoluments? I d'altra banda, també sobre una figura de la que se sap poc, que és si en aquesta investigació s'ha tret l'aigua clara de la figura del senyor Contreras, difunt senyor Contreras, perquè ell va pagar el senyor Enríquez i va facturar el club. Si hem pogut treure alguna cosa clar d'això.
Referent a la primera part de la pregunta,
the first part of the question,
que diu l'últim any del meu mandat es va...
In the last year of my term.
Això, casualment, avui surt una notícia de que una auditoria de KPMG ja contesta aquesta
There's this news that AGM, there's an answer to this question. The services that we had increased in the final year because there were more scouting studies. Because it was a year when there were more sporting competitions. And it was KPMG, at the moment of doing the audit, said that there were scouting services, knowing that they were taking place, because these services obviously exist. They were documented because the audit can prove those documents, and because there was more work, there were more reports, there were more competitions, and so obviously there was an increased price because of the global 2009-2010 season. There was
6-7 o el de la 5-6, 4-5 o 3-4.
More work, and so the amounts were varying.
Contestant també a la seva segona pregunta.
Answering the second question, or the second part of the question,
senyor Contreras.
About Mr. Contreras, who's no longer among us.
El que li puc dir és que totes aquestes empreses que surten a la causa,
all of these businesses that were connected to Mr. Contreras,
que faci l'esforç de llegir l'informe de l'agència tributària.
I would say the report by the tax agency, which I can't remember which page it is, if I'm not mistaken, 13-14.
L'informe de l'agència tributària en les pàgines 13 i 14.
Tax agency report on pages 13 to 14 leaves it very clear that all these businesses and their invoicing appeared in a moment that was outside of my term as a president, outside of 2003-2010. There's Norton and the other one I don't remember the name of.
No, l'altre, perquè hi ha 3, si no recordo mal.
There were 3 businesses, if I'm not mistaken.
Rodamantor, Best Norton i Rodamantor.
Best Norton and Rodamantor.
Facturant al club.
They were invoicing the club from 2013 to 2018.
La de Trestep va facturar del 15 al 18.
3C were
entre nosaltres, però que estan fora
invoicing the period that was outside of my term as presidency. I have no personal reason to doubt the presidents that succeeded me. The tax agency hypothesis is talking about an administrator of these associations, in which case Barça would be a victim of this misconduct. And what I want to do here is defend the interests of Football Club Barcelona. And so the question about Mr. Contreras was outside of my term. I don't want to come to any opinion of my own about the presidents that came after me, but the hypothesis of the tax agency is that Football Club Barcelona would be a victim of this misconduct.
Abans de passar a la següent pregunta, us torno a recordar, perquè a la primera ja ens hem trobat, sisplau, feu una pregunta. A la una tancarem. Per tant, us ho recordaré tants cops com calgui, però feu una pregunta. Gràcies.
Què tal, president? Què tal, president? Bon dia. David Bernabéu, Diario Sport TV. Parece bastante evidente que si...
It's pretty obvious that all this work,
dice que el Barça no quería, no pretendía influir.
You said that Barcelona didn't want to influence. All happened within a business that was external from the refereing committee.
Nadie entendió que esto podía ser un conflicto de intereses, es decir, un club de la liga que paga dinero, aunque sea.
Nobody not understand that this could be a conflict of interests.
Poco feo parece de entrada, o como mínimo da que pensar que mucha gente puede decir, bueno, aquí hay un conflicto de intereses, es decir, nadie se dio cuenta de esto.
Did nobody realize that there could have been conflict of interest here?
Tenemos conocimiento de
When we found out about this service,
nosotros lo recibimos, este servicio heredado, ya se venía prestando.
We inherited this service
cuando llegué en el 2003.
when I arrived in 2003.
En ese momento estábamos en el marco de una revisión de todo.
We were revising everything. When we came to that part, it was advisory service that was hired before, and we figured it was in the interest of the club. It was a good opportunity to have these quality reports about people who have credibility and trajectory in their role. So we maintained this service, and this service continued throughout the years. If you tell me now, well, what would you do now?
Pues mire,
well,
afortunadamente,
luckily,
hoy en día, las grandes
today and age,
las grandes
the
clubes,
companies,
las
the big
grandes
clubs,
tenemos el área de compliance.
We have our compliance department.
Compliance, ya os
the compliance department
se trata de prevenir y detectar situaciones
prevents or detects
conflictos
situations of possible conflicts within the institution.
Lo que haría en estos casos
so what I would do right now,
al área de compliance
I would tell the compliance department
esta prestación de servicios, que es lo que nos permite ahora a los dirigentes
explain this service and objectify it
de alguna
clearly.
manera que sean controladas, revisadas,
and make sure that is
investigadas,
investigated, controlled,
en este caso,
and as we did now, in this case,
con unas conclusiones.
that we draw some clear conclusions.
Que el área de compliance lo que hace es
Understand that the compliance department
y lo que haría ahora sería
protect our image, and that's what I would do. I'd pass it on to that department.
La prestación estaba hecha por el hijo de un
But
ex
the service was hired through the son of an ex-vice president of a refereeing association.
Pero lo que le quiero decir es que con independencia de quién facturara estos servicios, el prestador principal era una persona que
independence of who we were invoicing. We knew that he was somebody that worked in the refereeing committee. He had worked for other clubs, offering those same services. I understand your question, but understand as well the context of when we arrived in 2003 and we came across this and we figured, well, this service has been favoring our interest throughout these years prior, and they provide important and interesting reports. Well, then we are going to continue with it.
Hola, bon dia, president. Paula Muriel, de l'Esportiu. En la declaració que Negreira va fer davant Hisenda, va dir que els pagaments que rebia del Barça eren bàsicament per buscar una neutralitat arbitral. Vostè com explica aquesta...
How can you explain the statement by Negreira that it was a case of trying to find a neutral agreement with Barcelona?
Serà el senyor Negreira, que es refereix doncs, a José María Enríquez Negreira.
If you're referring to José María Negreira, and I think that he should give these explanations to the judicial system. But also here, I insist in the report by the tax agency, because otherwise we are going to come out with false hypotheses. Enriquez Negreira and the tax agency, the tax authorities, please write this down. I want to be precise when I say this. On page 17 of the report of the tax authorities, they make a reference that Mr. Negreira says that about the neutrality, it's a personal hypothesis. Nobody told me this directly, meaning that nobody from the club told Negreira that the money paid was to look for the neutrality. It was for the payment reports made about the referees. So, and this is very important for me. What we see clearly from the report of the tax authorities, that Negreira is giving his personal opinion, and they ask him, well, who told you this? And he says, well, this is my personal hypothesis. This is me talking in the name of Negreira, but nobody from the club told me directly that they're looking for neutrality. And that's how it is. So, it was not looking for neutrality, but it was the payment of a service.
Bon dia, president. Paco Ávila, de l'agència EFE. Jo li voldria preguntar sobre la ètica.
I want to ask you about the ethics.
Des del punt de vista ètic, l'actuació de tots els presidents i les directives
and
que han estat al front del club.
To what point can we question the ethics of the presidents that have been involved in the club of these years, in the time that you've paid Negreira?
I think I answered this question to your colleague. With regards to ethical questions, I mean, we were hiring the service of the son of the vice president of the refereeing committee. And nowadays we see more situations about for these kind of services. We saw that the service was interesting, that was acquired from the past presidents. They were quality in reports done by reputable people. So we didn't see any ethical conflicts, and we didn't see that it was, we didn't think it was incompatible with the sporting ethics. Now, it's true that if you ask me what would I do now, like I said, I would pass it on to the compliance department for them to clarify the situation. But if everything was fine, then I would continue to acquire that service.
Què tal, president? Aquí al fons, a la seva dreta, Ramon Salmurri, a la seva dreta, aquí. Ramon Salmurri, en directe a Catalunya Ràdio i a Catalunya Informació. M'agradaria incidir en el tema del...
I'd like to know the incidences of the extra payments, the 7.3 million that was paid. Why was the amount?
Ja l'he contestada, també.
I think I answered that.
Si voleu, doncs,
if you want,
seguiré
I'll continue
les mateixes preguntes.
to ask the same questions, but the 7.3 million euros, you have to put it into the context of 18 years. That was throughout 18 years. In 4 years, we found 629 reports, 43 CDs, and informs about from Mr. Negreira that he gave to the judicial system.
Per poder fer aquest tipus d'informes i, a més, que també els feien a altres clubs i també fins i tot mitjans.
We know that other clubs do the same thing and hire these types of services. When in the season more reports are done, then the price has to reflect that. But from 2003 to 2010, I respect how you formulate your questions and your opinions, but let's put things into context, please, because these 7.3 million seem like a lot, but you have to take into account that that was throughout 18 years, and for 4 different eras of different presidents. I can't say more because a president doesn't also go into the details of everything. It's not the role of a president. But I repeat, I'm just answering the same question that was asked to me first.
Bon dia, president. Aquí Francesc Latorre, de TV3. En la seva exposició ha parlat de Tebas, de Rubiales, del CSD, però no ha parlat de...
In your speech, you spoke about Tebas, FIFA, the Federation, but you didn't talk about UEFA.
Sobre aquest cas, si tem que el Barça es quedi sense jugar a Europa l'any que ve i com actuaria el club si això fos així.
Do you think Barça will play in Europe next summer, and what the impact on that?
Com a president de la Lliga de Futbol Professional, que per mi ha tingut o està tenint un comportament
the president
absolutament irresponsable
of La Liga is having an irresponsible behavior. He's not doing his own institution any interest, and he's only trying to damage the reputation of Football Club Barcelona. And what we're seeing is that he's having a series of behavior and statements that are simply false. I've only made a reference to one. He said that Barça recognized
un acte amb conformitat, un acte d'Hisenda amb conformitat, havia reconegut que no existien aquests serveis.
That these services did not exist. That is simply not true. It's false. The report from the tax authorities, I think, which page was this again? On page number 20. On page number 20, the employees of the club that were working on this report, they didn't find anything. They found these reports. And thanks to the good work done by the compliance department, we see that throughout 2014, 2018, 629 reports and 43 CDs. But, sorry, you're asking me about UEFA and Seferin. I don't know what's going through his head. He's simply adding fuel to the fire. And now UEFA is partaking in the lynch mob against Barça. And for us, unfortunately, you know that we are also in favor of the Super League. And we understand the power that UEFA have on a European level. And Seferin made several statements, but I want to ask for some prudence. And unfortunately, and ask them to have a responsible behavior and not like Mr. Tebas. Not refer to this as some scandal. There have been several true scandals in the football world, but in this case, they're drawing a wrong hypothesis. They're trying to damage the good name of Futbol Club Barcelona. UEFA
com ha de ser, el que estan és això, doncs està sub judice, això està en un procediment judicial.
Should know that this is in the hands of the judicial system, and we will wait for the conclusion. And I'm 100% certain that we will be absolved of any wrongdoing because we did not commit any corruption. So we will continue at the moment acting with normality.
Juan Bautista Martínez de La Vanguardia. Ha repetit en diverses vegades, com és veritat, que és un servei que va heretar de la presidència del senyor Gaspar i després...
You repeated that this service was also acquired by presidents before you and after you. Take into account the importance of the image of Barça. Have you thought about all coming out together to talk about this Negreira case, all the presidents?
Parlo per mi, això...
Better that I don't speak about others on behalf of others and speak about me, and it's true that there are various presidents involved, but what I've done is request an internal investigation from the compliance department. Presidents that succeeded me or preceded me in this Negreira case, which is the center of this controversy. So there's nothing that they've done with the intent of getting a sporting advantage for Barça. They've never paid referees or influenced referees. This has no motive to think a priori that it could have been done. I'm convinced. They were paid always for a service. Whichever presidency was done, whether 2003, 2010, or the others. Maybe you could, as your colleague asked about the businesses of Mr. Contreras, we've got the hypothesis of the tax agency, but in that case, Barça would be the victim. The money that was paid to the business of Mr. Negreira and his son, all of that was obviously not to buy or influence referees, and I insist, in this case, there was no sporting corruption. It's basically a case put together to sully the image of FC Barcelona, to destabilize us, to ruin our reputation against the club and also its fans. We need to be judged. We're working now with the courts. We'll collaborate. We'll help as much as we can so that the judges and the trial can reach its conclusion with as much normality and ability to investigate everything. And then from there, Barça can be exhumed of any wrongdoing.
Del periòdico. Diverses persones consultades al llarg d'aquests 2 mesos en els quals s'ha emmerdat el club. Persones, jugadors, exjugadors.
Several people have come out, players, ex-employees, that said they didn't have any knowledge or never received any reports provided by Negreira, who was in charge of receiving and communicating these reports.
As the president, I can't go into that detail. In my era, it was the vice president of the financial services or the vice president of the sporting area who would speak to the technical secretary with the reports of the first team and the lower categories. And I think that remains perfectly clear in the legal proceedings. I'm not going to speak about things that will step on the toes of the trial. We're talking about the facts, these things that existed, and there were people at the club that have been working on these reports, and obviously these reports arrived on the desk of whoever was interested in them, but I can't speak about that because I think the legal proceedings will clarify all of that.
Hola, president. Aquí al darrere, a la seva dreta, Marta Ramon, en directe al món a RAC1. Ha parlat, ha posat el focus en...
You've spoken and put the focal point on
entitat privada externa al club que hauria pogut tenir
private entities
irregulars en benefici propi.
who acted on their personal interests.
Del club. Vostè pot assegurar que en el seu mandat...
Can you assure?
Sí, ho garantitzo, ho asseguro, ho manifesto amb tota rotunditat.
I guarantee and assure you in every way.
També vull confiar i no tinc cap, diguem-ne, raó.
And I want to believe, or I've got no reason to not believe in the terms of the presidents that went after me, that these services were contracted with correct organizations and businesses to give out these services. And it was done with Negreira's family. I say that with very clear. When I talk about the external businesses or physical people, it's because in the case that they take advantage of the context, these individuals or these private entities, not Football Club Barcelona. And that's a key point of this situation that you speak about. They need to It's be clear that they try to take advantage of it for their personal gain. I'm not going to get into that. That's up to the tax agency and the trial, and in that case, Barça would be a victim. I want to say that I can say that I've got no doubt in my term that was the case.
Carlos Monfort en directe pel Twitch de Gigantes. Abans feia referència a la documentació obtinguda, deia 629 informes tècnicos.
629 reports, 43 CDs, and 4 other reports. Could you please disclose the information on those?
Yeah, they're all here. The 629, the 43, and it's content about the refereeing technique or the refereeing tendencies. The judge will see the quality of these reports, the content of these reports, the number of these reports, the relevancy of these reports, and they were done by people that were done within the world of refereeing. I can give you an example. Technical observations. The profile of the referee, the matches that the referee has overseen for FC Barcelona, and we're talking about the era 2014 to 18. This is from the 20th of April 2015. The matches that he oversaw from 2013, 2014. Matches from 2014-15, their reports. And I've not really looked at them because I don't have this role in the club, but the reports that are well done, with high quality, with photos. And they're accompanied.
També s'acompanyen amb 43 CDs.
With 43 CDs, which we've seen some of them. And they make reference to plays, the stoppages, the opinions, whether it's penalty or not. It's also interesting, sporting way to see how they talk about the characteristics of the referees, the way that they oversee the matches in the moment, how they issue the cards. The reports that are very precise. And the assessment, a technical assessment of the refereeing. There's a lot of frivolous speech about the information here, about buying referees, about influencing referees, that say the goal, the play, the match, the suspicious action, the favoritism by the referee. And I have to say, who paid that refereeing assessment? I couldn't say because it's not been produced. It's all fake news that's been made to create controversy against Football Club Barcelona. We will defend the honor of this club to the furthest lengths of the law and what comes out of this trial. We will defend Football Club Barcelona, not just with the tax agency and the law, but also who are here in FC Barcelona with. We'll defend this vulnerability in an honourable way.
Feia referència també als 4 informes que mencionava al final.
I was also referring to the 4 final reports that you mentioned at the end.
The conclusions of the preliminary report make reference to this, that there are also 4 other reports. I've not had the possibility of looking at them, but in theory, all makes reference to sporting information, scouting and the observations, the study of... Before, there weren't also the technological media. Now you can put in a player's name in YouTube and everything comes out. We had to do this work before. One of your colleagues asked me about my previous mandate, my previous term, from 2003 to 2010. We paid €1,500,000, and it's true that in the final year it went up because there were more reports in terms of the sporting reports, because there were more competitions, there was more work, and it went up.
I en aquest sentit, aquests 4 informes que parlen de diversos és sobre més de tipus esportiu.
And those other 4 reports were more of those sporting sorts of reports.
Bon dia, aquí, Artur Zanon d'Expansión. M'agradaria preguntar aquí.
Over here, I would like to ask you about the civil case put forward by Real Madrid. Does that have an impact on the Super League plans?
We're in favour of the Super League because we think we need to defend the sustainability of the clubs. I've given a lot of reasons, because I think everything is improvable. It's not necessarily in agreement with UEFA and the way they want to improve the competition. And we want more ways of competing with other clubs that have got the same vulnerabilities financially. We're not in it because we want to play against Real Madrid or Juventus. We're in it because we've got our own interests.
m'acompanyen en aquesta qüestió i això no depèn.
This doesn't depend
Hagin personat a la causa o no. Home,
if there are people
a la causa sí que veritablement no m'ha agradat.
for the cause or not. I don't like this way of talking about it because there's this cynicism around it.
I reconduir tot aquest cas Negreira, que és un cas que no hi ha corrupció arbitral, a l'enfrontament.
It's just a way of them steering the conversation to the Negreira case where there has been no corruption with the referees. And we hope that the trial leaves everything clear that the club is in favour of the work that the referees do.
Hola, president, aquí Martí Molina, Diari Ara. Bé, vostè ha fet aquesta exposició i ha deixat...
You've made your statement.
Una pregunta que li hem fet abans sobre...
But a question we had before...
Que vostè compareixia sol i no compareixia amb els altres antics presidents de...
That you could speak yourself, you didn't want to compare other presidents.
Entenc que els ha demanat explicacions i voldria saber què és el que li han comentat. Més que res per entendre... Vostè diu és que el 2010 va augmentar el preu perquè es van augmentar...
You talked about how in 2010 the services increased.
Fins al 2018, és a dir...
But it would seem that those increased services continued in 2018. Could you give some reason to that?
I said this in the beginning. I'm not talking in third person. I'm talking for myself and for my period as president and why I acquired those services. Anything that makes a reference to other times, those presidents will have to give their explanations to the judicial system and how it went up, the price for the services, how it increased. But I don't want to draw any bad conclusions. I understand that this corresponds. To the times, I mean, this is also investigated, so there will be explanations. Again, I can't speak in third person or for other people. Of course, they have been in touch, and we've been working intensely throughout these 2 months with the compliance department, as well as with an external company. And the conclusions that are here, these correspond to 2014 and 18. So what I think, what I'm convinced about, is that they were for a service acquired. The services stopped in 2018, so it's been quite a few years that we don't pay for them anymore. But these were acquired also by the presidents that came before and after me.
Hola, president. Aquí a la seva dreta. Alberto Hernández, de Televisión Española. Usted habla de que todo esto de la compra de árbitros son hipótesis falsas.
You talk about the false claims of buying referees, but I want to ask you about the legal letter from Negreira to President Josep Bartomeu about breaking this relationship. Do you have an opinion over this burofax? And if it feeds the theory of buying referees?
With all respects, I'm not here to share my opinion. I'm here to give explanations with regards to a report that has come out from the compliance department. As I'm not here about opinions and not here to speak on behalf of others, that is a question that should come out in another time, or Mr. Negreira will have to explain this to the judge himself. Javier Enríquez Romero is not being investigated and is also not a witness.
principal prestador de los servicios,
the main person in charge of providing these services is not being investigated. And he is a qualified and reputable person to provide these services given his trajectory and track record in the world of football, as well as his involvement with the refereeing committee.
Aquí, a la dreta. Adrià Soldavila, en directe pel Que t'hi jugues de Ser Catalunya. José María Enríquez Negreira va dir davant de l'agència tributària...
Negreira said to the tax office that the invoices to his
que no tenia res a veure amb cap informe ni cap vídeo.
Were made for
el senyor Enrique
services that had nothing to do with these reports or videos.
També va dir que ell treballava pel Barça o va treballar pel Barça a partir de la...
And the investigator
José Contreras fent aquests informes i aquests vídeos. Van mentir tots dos.
I also said that these services weren't for these videos. Could they both be right?
Again, I cannot talk on behalf of other people.
D'unes manifestacions que feien referència a que el senyor Negreira deia que això era per cercar la neutralitat.
I've made references to Mr. Negreira talking about neutrality. Like I said before, on page 17 of the report of the tax agency report, Mr. Negreira said this was a personal hypothesis. Nobody from the club told me this directly, meaning we never told him that we were paying him to look for neutrality. This is now... I will look this up as well, what the tax authorities have put out, but according to me, Mr. Negreira needs to come out and give an explanation to this.
Hola, presidente. Buen día. Se habla de los informes del 2014 a 2018.
You talk about the reports from 2014-2018. From the period before that, is there no evidence of what services Negreira was giving to the club?
Normally,
after 5 years, perhaps some are kept throughout the time, but what we have seen is some evidence of a game in 2013, but the reports that we found, that the investigators found, that they didn't find in a time before. That doesn't mean that these services weren't acquired before, but these reports all came from Mr. Enriquez Romero. No, from before we didn't find anything more. And that's logical because, like I said, that's documents that are destroyed. These have an expiry date, particularly these of scouting reports and players from 20 years ago or 15 years ago. Well, they're not the same anymore. It's documents that are destroyed, yeah.
Hola, president. Aquí Joan Pol Alcaraz del Món.cat.
Perdone un segon.
Sorry, 1 second. The only thing that we do have is from the KPMG audit service
con intención de perjudicarnos, y lo que está haciendo es
that there is a clear case of people trying to hurt us, and that yes, the price and the reports increased because the workload increased. So yes, these services, scouting services existed and were audited and are accredited. So to ask your question, from 2010, we have some documents from that audit from KPMG that makes a reference to that.
Hola, president. Aquí Joan Pol Alcaraz del Món.cat. Vostè ha assegurat que hi ha una campanya per perjudicar l'honorabilitat.
You seem to be sure that there's a campaign against the club and that Barça is a victim of the negative impacts of Catalanism around the world.
En el cas Negreira concret hagi vist que molesta el catalanisme del Barça I sobretot...
Ask specifically why the Negreira case bothers Catalanism and this public lynching doesn't respect the assumption of innocence.
Institucions catalanes també es poden haver vist perjudicades pel seu catalanisme com...
And we see other examples of how people have been hated upon because of their Catalanism.
Luckily, fet referència a que afortunadament només són algunes esferes de poder.
We're just talking about some people in power, not everyone.
La vessant que és evident per mi també, que hi ha algunes esferes de poder.
For me, it's clear that some of those in power simply can't stand that Barça are in favor of Catalanism, and that the club is supported by millions and millions of people throughout the world.
Aquí han vist alguns,
and some of these, who we know have a certain train of thought, are using this as an opportunity to attack the institutions, the most powerful institutions of Catalonia, of which Barça is a big part. So also with reference to bringing Real Madrid into the conversation, we are not playing the victim here. But the truth is we have never made any kind of committed any corruption or have done anything wrong. These are reports that are paid for and invoiced legally and fiscally reviewed. This is a campaign that certain media outlets are promoting that is simply based on a false hypothesis, a false conclusion. Starting with the president of La Liga Santander and others who have gotten involved because they're trying to destabilize us and damage our reputation.
Aquí, president, Bernat Aguilar del Nacional.cat. Vostè ha explicat que el Barça va fer aquests pagaments per assessorament.
You said that Barça made these payments for assessments. There's no crime. There's no underhand payments. Do you know of any external business that made profit from this Negreira case? If there's any report from other presidential terms that explains that there are businesses from former board members that could have made profit from this?
It's a bit of a forced question, this, but
no.
L'única
figura a la causa són empreses relacionades amb el senyor Contreras.
Businesses related to Mr. Contreras from the period of 2013 to 18 and 15 to 2018. Those are three different companies. So, from my perspective, it's wrong to draw conclusions on such a sensitive topic. Like I said, the lawmakers, the judicial system will draw their conclusions.
Jo veig que es parla també sempre sense precisar, perquè el senyor Contreras,
Mr. Contreras has passed away and is no longer with us. But as far as I'm concerned, he was never a director at Barça. Neither with presidents who came after me or before. He was a member of a sporting commission or social commissions, but not linked to Barça in that regard. He was a member of a commission. We know that Barça's activities are so intense that there are several commissions, sporting commissions, social commission. The club is structured in commissions, different commissions, and he was part of one, but he never had the position as a director of the club.
a la causa són les empreses que figuren a
And
banda de
the
les
causes are of
serveis,
companies who
que són les empreses relacionades
invoiced us for services that are related to Mr. Negreira.
Hola, president. Àlex Massana, en directe a BTV, ha dit que el Barça faria el que fos per defensar la honorabilitat del club. Si això pot ser, per exemple, anar en contra de Javier Tebas, de qui ha parlat que està actuant de manera irresponsable, i com ho podria fer, amb quines accions?
You talked about the vulnerability of the club and the actions that have done in an irresponsible way.
Persones que de forma irresponsable estan atacant o intentant embrutar.
It's very irresponsible for these people to attack us.
Ara no li concretaré accions, però cada vegada que algú s'extramita,
every time somebody comes out with an attack to try to damage our reputation with these statements interpreting negatively everything that we've done.
Que calguin en defensa de la reputació del Barça, de la imatge, del prestigi,
They're trying
de
to
l'honorabilitat del Futbol Club Barcelona.
hurt the good reputation of Football Club Barcelona.
Les que reclamaran els danys i perjudicis amb els instigadors d'aquesta
We will also bring these entities and people forward to the judicial system because we are going to look for economic retribution.
Entenc que a les persones,
We understand.
els advocats, i no em faci valorar aquí públicament el que
I'm not going to hear publicly name names now,
defensaran la honorabilitat del club,
but we are going to defend our honor,
causats que, insisteixo, poden pujar a quantitats astronòmiques.
we will sue these people for astronomical numbers
Amb frivolitat sobre una qüestió tan seriosa,
because we cannot allow
perquè el que estem fent
this to happen on such a serious and sensitive topic and to ruin the name of Football Club Barcelona, our name that has been around over 125 years. We are a reference point in the footballing and sporting world.
que amb el seu sentiment han anat enfortint l'entitat. Nosaltres, com a junta directiva, ja ho he
We
dit,
have people, fans,
no permetrem que s'insulti aquest
that
digníssim
identify themselves as
i, evidentment, a tothom que vulgui
Barça fans and anybody that wants to stomp on our crest and the reputation of Football Club Barcelona.
vulguin embrutar l'escut, a qui vulgui embrutar l'honorabilitat del futbol.
Those that want to damage us, we will take action. We'll take action against all of those in defense of the honor and the reputation of Football Club Barcelona.
Bona tarda, president. A la seva esquerra. A la seva esquerra, aquí. Y buena tarde. Adrián Ragas para el 10 del Barça. Ha comentado que en su último año de mandato incrementó los pagos por scouting. También han aparecido en la pantalla. No sé si
increased prices
consistían estos servicios y en qué se diferenciaban de los de asesoramiento arbitral. Muchas gracias.
For the scouting reports and refereeing reports. Can you specify that, please, a bit more?
Yeah, in the audit done by KPMG, there were various reports related to scouting.
Y eran en función de primero, saben que eran referidos a...
They were firstly about players and the teams in the lower categories in Barça, but also reports about international competitions, about players, because the services of these referees was always done for refereeing in the domestic competitions, not on a European level, not outside the Spanish borders.
En cambio de scouting, sí.
But scouting, they would do that. And so there was the Confederation Cup. I've got it fresh in my mind because I read the auditing report recently that accredits these services and makes references to players in the youth setup, but also in the confederations, which took place in 2010. And that's why there was an increase in cost for those services.
Buenas tardes, presidente. Alfredo Martínez, de Onda Cero. Usted ha mencionado que el que prestaba los servicios
You talked about
Negreira Romero.
that this services were offered by the son of Mr. Negreira. Why did Mr. Contreras make out the invoices?
Tan sencilla como girar las facturas, porque usted ha dicho claramente que está convencido de que nadie ha metido la caja en la.
You said you're convinced that nobody tried to make money from this situation, but isn't it surprising that the audit shows that the commission was very high and that you needed a middleman to mediate this situation?
Insisto, yo no voy a hablar
So I want to say, once again, I'm not going to speak on behalf of others. I can't. That's something, that hypothesis, is what the
a las empresas que aparecen en la causa relacionadas o propiedad del señor Contreras.
The legal system, the prosecutor's office, has maintained in this case around Mr. Contreras. And the prosecutor's office maintains that if that is the case, Barça would be a victim. And my obligation as president of Barça is defend the interests of Barça. And so our lawyers in this moment, within this context of the proceedings, if this theory by the prosecutor's office is that these businesses made profit from this, is that Barça would be a victim of this situation. We're the first ones that are interested. The long arm of the law investigates this to the fullest extent and identifies the wrongdoers, and in this case, Barça would be a victim.
Nosotros nuestra auditoría es la investigación
the investigation that's been done by the compliance department has to be determined by a judge. What compliance have done is compile all this information, and once they've compiled it all these reports, there's an accreditation that this service was contracted. These things that happened between 2014 and 2015 happened outside my term, between 2003 and 2010. And so a judge needs to seize this. I'm not going to give my opinion over this because it's not my place. I'm convinced, and I've said I'm completely convinced, that there was never a buying of referees or an influence of referees. If there was another destiny for this money, and I'm not going to say it because I'm here to inform and explain, but I'm not going to give my opinion on things that are being investigated. I need to respect the legal process.
You pointed to Real Madrid as one of the big public enemies with regards to this Negreira case. Are you surprised to be still hand in hand in favor of the Super League?
I'll say, I told your colleague, Barça right now is in this group that's pushing forward this new competition at the European level. And so we put on the table an analysis, a coherent analysis, I believe, in the current state of European football, the position of UEFA in European football. And we're positioned there, not because there are other clubs there, but because we think we need to defend the sustainability of European football, and especially the situation that the clubs are suffering against clubs that have got unlimited resources. One thing they're not mutually exclusive, these two things. I don't like the comparison because I think it's an act of cynicism, and a club that we all know has been more in favor of the refereeing decisions, and now they suddenly appear as victims during the time of Barça's greatest success. And I think it's just ridiculous that they'd see it in that way. And on the other side, we need to defend Barca's interests. Because we're here to defend Barca to our last drop of blood, my colleagues on the board and me. And I'm not going to deal with hypocrisy and cynicism about whether they've been harmed by the actions of Football Club Barcelona.
Repeteixo, una pregunta per mitjà, sisplau, i síntesi màxima.
One question per news outlet, please.
Germán García, Radio Nacional. Quería preguntarle por la UEFA.
I wanted to ask you about UEFA. There's certain fear within the Barça fans whether or not UEFA can
y que no tiene necesidad de esperar la sentencia definitiva de la justicia. ¿Hay ese temor o usted ha estado en contacto con el señor Ceferín que le vaya?
Have you been in touch with Mr. Ceferín? What next season can happen with regards to Barça's participation in European competitions?
Y clasificarnos para la Champions. Yo pienso que esto va.
Well, first we need to win the league and qualify for the Champions League, and I think we're on the right path. And I think that UEFA, as it's acting right now, they've not joined this public lynching before the trial, like others are doing, and I'm convinced that this won't happen. It would be fact without precedence with a club at a level like Football Club Barcelona, who's being publicly lynched without any trial, and these false hypotheses are being validated. UEFA knows this. We're in contact with UEFA. We've explained this. And we'll see the ability of dialogue that we've got with UEFA still exists beyond the fact that we've got some discrepancies about the other issues.
Hola, presidente. Aquí al fondo Alejandro Segura en directo para Radio Marca. En breve hay una asamblea de
There will
la
be
Liga.
a meeting soon, an assembly from La Liga. I don't know if you will join. If so, what will you explain? And if there's any president of another club has been in touch with you to talk about the Negreira case privately?
No, y me hubiera gustado.
No, but I'd have liked to.
Me hubiera gustado, ya no solo algún presidente de...
I'd like to, not just as a president of clubs, but also as a president in the league. They call me, is there something, is there not anything, is there an internal investigation? Because that would make reference to other presidential terms, in my presidential term before. There's never been that attitude from the Professional Football League. In fact, totally the opposite. We've had a belligerent, in sedentary attitude towards us. They've made these exclamations about why is there smoke, and then they've thrown fuel on the fire. They've made false statements, or at least they've not been interpreted as pushing forward the correct way of doing these things. There have been these incessant statements made by the president of the Liga. We've not seen this attitude, which is the proper way it should have been done, of prudence, of responsibility, and around facts that, had they been true, they would be very serious. Neither the president of the league nor anybody from any club in the league who's called us to become informed firsthand of what's going on at the club. Obviously, it makes us think a lot about the institution of the league, and especially this story around what Spanish football is in terms of La Liga.
Sí, ya vaig, pero mire, usted ha presupuesto que voy a ir el miércoles.
You've asked if I'm going on Wednesday. You got that right. Yes, I'm going to go. I'm going to go because I want the opportunity. If they give it to me, if they allow me to speak, I will explain all of this.
Y a buen entendedor, pocas palabras bastan.
And I might even have a few further words for them. But I'm not surprised by the attitude of the league president, taking into account his obsession with Barça. And what I hope to be able to do is explain to all the members of La Liga, the 42 clubs, 41 clubs, on what this is all come about, this Negreira case. And I'm convinced that sooner or later they will exhume Barça of any wrongdoing, because I will say once again, there are no sporting crimes here.
Hello, President. We talked about campaigns to damage the reputation. Who do you think are behind them? You talked about the son of Negreira, who also performed this service for other clubs. So, who are these other clubs?
We've come to the understanding that they've worked for the Spanish Football Federation. He's well qualified. He's got a lot of experience in the world of football. He's created some very high quality reports. He's done the videos. I think with his ability and experience, with his professional trajectory, he could work with other clubs. I've understood that he has worked with other clubs, with Valencia, Girona, and with some other club, Fenerbahce as well. He's been working with them. I suppose that the judge, the trial, will bring light to... I hope that the legal investigation brings light on this, but you don't have to be too intelligent. I already said it's no coincidence here. I said this has arrived in a moment. Coincidentally, Barça are on the right path in terms of the sport. We're recovering the financial situation. We're stabilizing our position in the league. It's a coincidence that this case exploded. When they were trying to obligate us to sign with CVC, in another way, it was more financially beneficial for Barça to sign a different deal. The fact that we're also working in this new format of European competition, that's also a coincidence. I also don't think it's a coincidence that we're starting work on the Spotify Camp Nou. All this makes me think that there are people interested in getting into this controversy, spreading this fake news, which has been created by this controversy.
Hola, presidente. Aquí Ricardo Rossetti en directo para Golplay. Nunca le había escuchado un ataque tan...
I've never heard of, within my memory, of such a tough attack on Real Madrid. And I want to talk about the relationships between Barcelona and Real Madrid, Florentino Perez and Joan Laporta.
Well, institutionally speaking, they're damaged. We had a cordial relationship with them, with all clubs. And of course, with Real Madrid as well, they are opponent, an adversary. But because I think that the head-to-head battles between Barça and Madrid-Barça are the best you can see in the world, and it's good for the competition. And that relationship has taken a hit. It's been damaged from this campaign, and in my opinion, they acted upon impulse that is not according to their image. But we're not going to talk about the history between Barça and Madrid, but they decided to act for themselves and put forward this civil case. Of course, we are here to defend the interest of Football Club Barcelona, as well as the sentiment of millions of Barça fans throughout the world. So I needed to come out and give an explanation about this whole thing, as well as the appearance of Real Madrid upon the scene.
Jordi Blanco de ESPN. ¿Qué le parece que el presidente de la Liga?
What do you think about the president of the league having financial relationships with other clubs when he's also then speaking out against FC Barcelona? How can you interpret that?
It's
another show of hypocrisy, lack of prudency, and a lack of professionalism. I already got the news about this a while back. Well, I think he should. It only enhances this false hypothesis that Barça bought referees, and when he talks about this being a unique case without past precedents. But I prefer to put my opinions forward from an objective perspective. For me, he has been irresponsible. It's a person that has acted with little professionalism and instead participated in a public lynching of the club without the trial being over. And that is improper of a president of a league.
Perdone por la pregunta si le parece básica, pero
excuse this question if it seems basic, but majority of the service was to Enrique Romero.
¿Qué hacía Enrique Negreira exactamente?
What does Enrique Negreira do exactly then within all of this?
Well, I think the father-son relationship here had some influence. The knowledge and the trajectory of the father, without it being incompatible with the acquiring of the services of the son, of course. He had some influence in those services that the son was providing. But this false hypothesis is being spread by some and the media outlets that Negreira was involved in the results of games or refereeing decisions. He didn't have the authority to do that. He didn't have the capacity. His role didn't involve that. What I can assure you,
yo siempre he tenido entendido que el prestador de los servicios, el principal, era el hijo.
The person who was providing these services was the son of Mr. Negreira.
Hola, buena tarde. Mari Carmen Torres, del diario Marca. Yo quería saber si usted en estos meses
I'd like to know if during these months you had thought of stepping aside because you thought they were coming not just for Barca but for you.
Well, quite the contrary. Given my position as president of the club and chosen by the masses of Barça members, it is my responsibility and duty to act to defend the honorability of and dignity of the club, and I have the strength to do so, and reasons as well, in this case and in others. And whether they want to attack me, well, here I am. They know where to find me. They would do so without any sense or reason. It would be given for the way that I'd spoken out perhaps in the past.
no sé, un paso al lado por si vienen a por mí. Yo
if they're coming after me
creo que mi deber,
in this moment, again, I see it as my duty.
Las ganas que tengo es de defender al club, de defender a los
And
barcelonistas.
also,
Y lo voy a seguir haciendo, insisto, y no solo yo.
I want to defend the interests of the club, as well as all of the other members of the board and the executives of the club and all the employees
Vamos a estar más unidos que nunca para defender nuestro escudo,
of the club. We are here to
las
defend
fundacionales del Barça y también para defender nuestro
the
modelo,
values
porque aquí
of the
hay
club
intereses
of Barça
de perjudicar nuestra reputación, de apropiarse al club.
and to defend us from the attacks to damage our reputation. There's a certain interest to make sure that the club is, let's say, controlled or led by certain quote-unquote weaker people or more submissive people. And submissiveness is not synonymous with Joan Laporta. This is not how we are going to do things, especially not against false conclusions and attacks that are spread by certain media outlets and are being magnified by others to damage our reputation, and instigators that want to destabilize the club now that we are on a road of improvement.
En esta posición estamos. Mis compañeros de junta.
This is the position we're in, both me and all of my board members.
Sí, presidente. Estamos en directo para el Rojo Vivo. Josep Soldado para Jóvenes de la Sexta. En estas cajas nos ha demostrado usted los informes que presentó.
In the boxes that you've shown us, we've got the reports from Negreira's son. But are there reports from Negreira himself, and how can you justify the invoices paid to him?
I didn't really understand your questions, but
Un asesoramiento
there is a
técnico arbitral que está documentado.
revision on refereeing reports.
Está documentado.
It is all documented.
Esta documentación
This documentation
el giro de unas facturas que están perfectamente detalladas.
Are translated into invoices that are paid legally and have been audited
Facturado este servicio que
and have been paid through or to the companies that were providing these services, and all these payments and invoices are registered in the club's auditing books, and these invoices have passed the fiscal revisions and investigations that have been going on throughout the years, and they have been audited and accredited by companies like KPMG.
Informes.
What reports are you talking about?
No, los informes los hacía
No, the reports were done by Javier Enriquez Romero.
Es más, hay manifestaciones tanto
In fact,
en la causa
there are
como en la agencia tributaria que Javier Enríquez Romero
statements
manifiesta que era
that
él el que
Mr.
elaboraba
Romero
los informes por cuenta de su
were
padre cuando correspondía.
performing these reports in name of his father when it was in a time that it was corresponding to that.
De Más que Pelotas. Hace unos días el club abrió un buzón para que los socios pudiesen hacer.
Recently, the club opened a mailbox for members to report acts against the club.
Bueno, ya hace tiempo que abrimos.
Yeah, it's been a while that we have opened, I think, on our website for all of our members, a section for our members who knew or aware of tendencies relating to this Negreira case that could be put forward to the
que lo pusieran en contacto de nuestros servicios jurídicos y se han producido
to the judicial system and put forward
permanentemente analizando estas cuestiones y si corresponde.
And we are analyzing these cases one by one
los autores.
And see if we can come up with cases against the authors of these smear campaigns.
Al hilo de esta pregunta anterior del compañero, quería
Following on from this question, I wanted to know the number of journalists that have been reported by the club or members of the media communication.
Well, we don't discriminate in that sense. We want to look for justice and are going against people or media outlets that are trying to damage the reputation of our club and are coming up with fake smear campaign or smear campaigns to damage the club. So these are cases that we are being put forward against people, regardless if they're journalists or whatever they are, to defend the interests of Barça and the image of the club. So far, 20 lawsuits have been put forward.
Last couple of questions then.
A su derecha. Buen día. David Ibáñez de Mediaset. ¿Le hubiera gustado que Florentino Pérez le hubiera llamado a...
Would you have liked that Florentino Pérez had called you?
Que decidiese que el Real Madrid se iba a personar en el caso. Eso influyó también a que no...
Before saying that Real Madrid was going to support the case, would that have affected your presence in the Clásicos?
I would like to think that he was under a lot of pressure. It's true that in the football world, in fact, I know that he was, because the rivalry between Barça and Madrid is part of the emotions, but I think that the club should have done is remain silent, like we all do in these cases, and wait for the right moment, or wait, seeing as nothing has come out, or wait for something to have come out and nothing has come out. I understand that the masses of Madridismo and Real Madrid demanded that he acted, but what I can't do is accept it. And what I have to give my opinion about this situation. I know that he was in a complicated situation, so I can understand that, but I don't accept, and I don't think it's right that he has come out with a case against us. And we've spoken about it. Yes, we've spoken about it.
Buen día, presidente. Aquí Víctor Malo de Culemanía. Hay algunas informaciones que apuntan
There's some information that's been noted that Joan Gaspar made payments to Negreira at the end of his term. When you won the presidency election in 2003, could you explain these payments to Negreira and can you put them in a context?
No, it wasn't really like that. When we arrived in 2003, our advisor, or in charge of the Treasury Department, told us about these services, and for a period of time I was prudent, and I wanted to understand what we were paying these services for, and when clarity was brought upon me and that it was interesting refereeing reports that were good for the club, and that it was a service that we were hiring for many years already, well, I decided that it was good to keep the service and continue paying it, and that's it.
Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.